to accept the answer before even knowing the question. That is what religious belief is. Nuri Shabaka, Ursa Ma'adara. Knowledge is infinite, therefore evolution is inevitable. Peace.
Welcome to Paradigm Shift TV 314. I am your host, Pianki Patama Tulu Neferamon Ra. And today we got another powerful show for you. We got our brother, the Conscious Christian Jerome Green. And we also featuring our brother, Trust and Believe the Gospel. Brother, introduce yourself. Let the people know what you're going to be laying down today.
All right. Greetings to everybody on the platform, first of all, and to everybody who's listening. What I'm going to be presenting tonight is a response to some of the claims that I've heard the brother Metuhotep make in regards to this kind of parallelism between Christianity and Kemetic spirituality. Now, there's a popular notion out there that certain concepts and certain narratives that are in the Bible and that are part of the Christian doctrine were supposedly stolen from ancient Kemetic texts and also from the hieroglyphics on the walls of Kemet. So what I'm going to be presenting is a sort of a debunking of said claims by Metuhotep.
All right, brother. Well, the floor is yours. Take your time, do your thing. We'll probably be out here for maybe an hour or so. So again, the floor is yours to do what you will. It's gonna be powerful. And I'm sure our brother gonna see it and he gonna have some reprisals to make. So I'm looking forward to a spiritual rejoinder. So have at it.
All right. Of course, the topic is centered around the accusation that Christianity is a copy of Kemetic spirituality. Now, my first question would be, where exactly is the genetic dependence between the biblical worldview or Christianity and Kemetic spirituality indicated? You know what I'm saying? So when you go into even the beginnings, like when you go into the book of Genesis and you see certain things in the book of Genesis about the creation account, and you go into a Kemetic text like the coffin text and you see the creation account, they're totally different. You know what I'm saying? And I'll give you an example. In the coffin text, and I think you go to like pages 14 through 16, you see where the Creator God says the following: I brought my flesh into being by my own effectiveness. I am he who created himself. I fashioned myself as I pleased. I came into being as one who becomes. I came into being and becoming became. All beings came into being after I came into being. So that's one part of the Kemetic creation account. And also, according to the Kemetic narrative, Atum created humans supposedly from the joyous shedding of tears after finding excuse me, after finding his children who were Geb and Nut. So the creation of humans, according to the Kemetic narrative, wasn't even intentional. You know, as the story goes, Geb and Nut fell in love, and this upset Atum, so he separated Nut from Geb, and this is even how the earth was formed. So, in essence, the earth was never meant to be formed according to this narrative. Now, when you go into the biblical narrative, first of all, it never indicates that Yahweh had a beginning. In fact, Yahweh literally means the self-existing one. And we also know, according to the biblical narrative, that Yahweh intentionally created humans and the earth. And also, Yahweh brings no other gods into existence by procreation or separation. And, you know, I think the most important thing we need to realize when trying to compare and contrast these two narratives is that the Kemetic narrative is based on what's called theogony, which means birth or origin of the gods. So I don't necessarily see any type of genetic dependence even on the creation narratives in both texts. So to say that the Bible or Christianity stole from Kemetic spirituality, you would have to, you have to do more than claim it. You would have to actually show some sort of genetic dependence, and we don't see it in the creation narratives. Now, another example of there being no genetic dependence in either text is the story of Cain and Abel. Now, I've heard Metuhotep say that the story of Cain and Abel was stolen from Kemet, and I think he tried to compare it to the story of, I believe it was Set and Osiris. But when you actually look into what the narrative of Cain and Abel was rooted in, then that brings that accusation into question, because the narrative of Cain and Abel is rooted in the acts of sacrificial worship. Now, we know that Abel's sacrifice included the shedding of blood, which made it sufficient, while Cain's sacrifice of fruit was deficient because it did not include the shedding of blood. Now, we know that Cain subsequently became jealous of Abel, and his jealousy ultimately led to him murdering Abel. You know what I'm saying? Now, when looking at that and seeing what the narrative of Cain and Abel is predicated on, the only similarities between the two narratives are jealousy and murder. But does that necessarily mean that the latter narrative was copied from the former? And I would say no. And to even try to say that it was is an example of what's called the false parallel fallacy. Another accusation that was made by Metuhotep is that the 42 laws of Ma'at, or the 42 negative confessions, are what inspired the 10 Commandments. Now, I think what needs to be done is we need to make it clear what the 42 negative confessions or the 42 laws of Ma'at were in essence, and what the 10 Commandments were in essence. So the 42 negative confessions, or some people call them the declarations of innocence, is a list of 42 sins which the soul of the deceased can honestly say it has never committed when it stands in judgment in the afterlife. The most famous list comes from the Papyrus of Ani. Now, looking into the Ten Commandments, the Ten Commandments of the Bible consist of 5 commands that enjoin the duties of God, which include spiritual laws that aren't even mentioned in the 42 laws of Ma'at or the 42 negative confessions, and another 5 commandments that are rooted in how to live among each other. Now, we know that in the New Testament, Christ summed all these laws up in all these commands up, in 2 even greater commands: to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, if you ask me, and this is just my opinion, the 42 laws of Ma'at or declarations of innocence or the 42 negative confessions are more akin to self-affirmation than anything. Another accusation that he made.
Let me speak on the 42 laws of Ma'at and the 10 commandments for a second, if you will. We've heard that claim made over the years a bunch of times. First off, we have no documents of anyone in ancient history saying that it was some kind of conspiracy theory or that they were conspiring to steal, do, or take anything from anyone when it comes to morality. Now, in the Bible, it teaches the moral law, but the Bible does not teach us that there was no moral law until God gave the moral law. For example, when Cain killed Abel, there was no 10 commandments. But when Cain killed Abel, Cain knew that he had killed Abel. He knew that he had did something wrong. He knew that he had committed murder. He went to God, and he knew that he was wrong. So for anybody to suggest that the 10 commandments were taken from anywhere at any point in any time would be asinine, because they would be under the assumption that the 10 commandments is what started the confession of sin or where sin began, when we know that sin began from the biblical narrative after Adam bit the fruit. So also inside the New Testament, it lets us know that when they were converting Gentiles to the faith as well, it lets us know that they had ramped up on a group of Gentiles. They said that how do these people do by nature what we do by law, which was letting you know that when it comes to morality in itself, you don't have to be taught morality. That's something that is already in you, and that's also proven within the biblical text before the 10 commandments on how, let's just say, the Noah narrative. There was no 10 commandments given on the Noah narrative. God said there was wickedness in the earth, and the people who were doing the wickedness knew that what they were doing was either wrong or right. The reason why he did what he did was for judgment. You can't judge anybody if they don't know, or if they're breaking a law that they have no sense of. So I just wanted to say that when it comes to the biblical narrative, for anybody to just point out the 10 commandments which were given to Moses, but negate the rest of the people before Moses who still had a sense of morality that was based off the 10 commandments, would just be foolish. Go ahead, my brother.
Right. You're exactly right, man. And I appreciate the additional insight into the 10 Commandments and just the moral law, period. You know what I'm saying? Because even when you look at the 42 laws of Ma'at, we know that they were moral laws, right, but there were laws that actually preceded the 42 laws of Ma'at. Like, you know what I'm saying? And even like you said, even before, there was a list of actual moral laws, we still knew right from wrong. We still had a sense of morality, because we always had a moral lawgiver, which is God. So,
right. And on another note, if they want to say that the 10 Commandments were taken from the 42 laws of Mayat, then where is the Sabbath? I'm just if we're just going to go based off of 10, which we know there's 613 laws in the Bible, not 10. 10 was what they started off with on the Mount Zion, on Mount Zion, but we know that there are 613. But let's just focus on the 10. We have on the fourth commandment, keep the Sabbath. Where is that in the 42 laws of Mayat? So if we're stealing something, then why are there things that they have on the Hebrew list that are not even on the list, just even out of the 10? So no, it's not a copy. It's not stealing. It's not none of that. They had their own cultural laws, just like Kemet had their own cultural laws. No, if you went to Canaan at that time or went to another ancient land at that time who didn't even interact with Egypt, they would have had their own moral laws as well. And I'm pretty sure that don't murder, don't steal, don't lie, all that would have been in there too. So that's just morality. So can't nobody take credit for that. If you really want to go off of morality, no individual person can take, no individual nation can take credit for that, because whoever the creator is, even if we want to disagree on who that creator is, whoever that creator is, he's the lawgiver, not the nation. So we can just straight throw that out the window.
Exactly. And even hypothetically, if somebody really wanted to get technical and they wanted to line up 42 laws out of the Bible in the Old Testament with 42 laws, with the 42 laws of Ma'at, you're going to find even more differences.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that whole notion is fallacious. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I know that there are certain quote unquote teachers like Ashwa Kwesi and others like him that push this notion that the Bible is simply a rehashed copy of Kemetic spirituality, Kemetic literature and concepts and things like that. But when you really look into it, you find out that that's simply not true.
Yeah, it's true, because the scholars don't agree with that, and I'm not a scholar, you're not a scholar, neither is the brother that we're talking about tonight. But when we look into scholarship, when we look at the people who are teaching at universities, when we look at the people who have master's degrees and PhDs in these fields of studies, none of them agree with that. So and I'm not calling nobody pseudo, but that's the definition of pseudo, when the work doesn't agree with the peers. So a person can go to school and have a degree in a certain field. Let's just say a mathematician. If there's a person who has a degree in being a mathematician and he comes to the table and says 2 + 2 = 16, then he's pseudo. His work has to line up with the work that has already been presented as true. You can't just go radical. You get what I'm saying? So in a field of study, when it comes to linguistics and history and things of that nature, which he would have to prove through the language or through ancient documents that this was the purpose in the first place, which can't be proven. Then he would have to prove that whoever was the person to invent the 42 laws of Mayat, that they were the first person to give the law of morality to mankind as a human individual, regardless of where they got it from. How Moses said he got the laws from God. Wherever the person who got 42 laws of Mayat got it from, then you would have to prove that as well, even just to prove that the other nation stole it from anybody. You get what I'm saying? So that stuff can't be provable, man. So it's really a losing battle to even try to make that an argument for anybody to try to prove that. And us as Bible believers, we never came out and said that the 10 Commandments was the first law given to every single mankind. So it's really a null and void argument, you get what I'm saying?
Right, exactly. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to my next the next point or the next accusation. I've heard him say that the biblical Trinity was stolen from Kemet. Now, what I want to do here is I want to define what the Trinity is, because though we don't see we don't see the actual word Trinity in the Bible, but we see the concept of the Trinity throughout the Bible, Old Testament and New.
Right.
So what the Trinity is, in essence, is the state of being threefold. Now, according to the Christian doctrine, it is the unity of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit as three persons in one Godhead. Now, a lot of people in the conscious community claim that this biblical Trinity was a copy or a ripoff of Asar, Aset, and Heru within Kemetic spirituality. But I think the primary reason why they do that is because of the number three. Asar, Aset, and Heru. That's three. But that's not actually a Trinity. You know, just because you see three, that doesn't necessarily constitute a Trinity, just based on the definition that I just gave. Right. You know, and descriptively with Asar and Aset, according to the Kemetic narrative, being brother and sister, and Heru being their offspring, then from a descriptive standpoint, what they really actually represent is an unconventional family unit. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I've heard people say that the true Trinity is the Father, Mother, and Child, which some say Asar, Aset, and Heru represent. But that's still inaccurate. You know what I'm saying? Because Father, Mother, and Son don't necessarily represent a threefold representation. It represents a family unit. That's it. You know, and the last point, was there anything you wanted to add, Trust?
Yeah, I want to add on that Trinity. Yeah, and what you said was totally accurate. They see the number three. They see a mother. They see a father. They see a son, and they say Trinity. But see, that's not the biblical concept. See, a lot of people would like to refer to the Holy Spirit as a woman, but the Bible doesn't do that. The Bible is unique in the way that it explains who God is. Now, I like to explain it like the government. You know, we have the judicial system, we have the legislative system, and we have the executive system. But we don't call them the government. We call them the government. Three of them are, all of them are distinct in what they do, but they make up one head. You see, so when it comes to God, we don't have to have a female energy and we don't have to have a male energy at all. Now, God does carry on the persona as a male because he orchestrated the male to be the head of things when it comes to earth. But God is a spirit. He's neither male or female. The Holy Spirit is a spirit. It's neither male or female. Jesus is a male by way of him coming in the flesh on the earth. So we are not trying to represent a family unit as in a father, a mother, and a child. The Trinity described in the Bible is the Trinity made up of the spirits that God collectively, which is all three of them, collectively have equal power within each other. Not that one of them is in submission to the other or that one is over the other, because in a family unit, the parents are over the child. The parents have to teach the child, or the according to the Christian narrative, you know, the male is the head, not in dominance, but as in leadership. So the man would be over the woman. That is not the biblical teaching of a Trinity. When it comes to them, they are all three equals as one. So for the biblical concept to be a copy of the Egyptian concept, you would have to first put both concepts side by side. And when you do that, you would see that they don't match up on no end. So that's out the window too.
Right. So before I get to my last point, I want to reiterate the question I asked at the beginning of like, where is the genetic dependence? Like, you can make the claim that, you know, Christianity or the Bible, well, Christianity and the Bible are ripoffs of Kemetic spirituality, Kemetic texts, and Kemetic concepts. But so far, we have yet to see any indication of any sort of genetic dependence. between the two. So again, I appreciate your input, Trust, and I'm about to go into my last point. Metuhotep also said that the concept of baptism was stolen from Kemet. Now, the problem with that is he first one time before he said that we are baptized in the womb, basically. And the problem with that is he said he made that claim, and then he came back and made another claim that baptism was first established in Kemet by Anu, who supposedly baptized Heru. Now, the problem with that is his first claim is that, like, what does he mean that we were baptized in the womb? Like, if you knew what a baptism actually was, then he probably wouldn't have made that claim. But as far as Anu even being a baptizer, there's no mention of that in the Kemetic text. And what's more is that the idea came from Gerald Massey. And, Gerald Massey was a 19th century English poet. He was a Freemason, and he was an amateur Egyptologist, which means anything he said in regards to Egypt is basically null and void. Like he's definitely no authority when it comes to anything in regards to ancient Egypt. But we've heard this repeated by people like Ashraf Kwesi and other figureheads in the conscious community. But it's historically, from an academic standpoint, is not true. Because we know that the concept of a baptism from the biblical standpoint is a representation of the remission of sin. So, these are just things that are popular notions within the conscious community and maybe even within the Nile Valley School of Thought. But outside of those two spheres, they don't really hold any weight. And that's I'm pretty much done. Trust, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I want to add to that one too, man. We know that the concept of baptism, according to the Christian concept, originated with Christians. You see, and what gets me is that people take biblical terms, flip them around, and say that it comes from somewhere else, but can't tell you the original term if that is indeed the case. You see, I find that very funny. Like, for example, the concept of heaven and hell. I hear people say, well, blah, 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 about my religion, then you can go to heaven, blah, 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 you can go to hell. But where are those names? I can understand the concept, but where are those names at? And when it comes to baptism, as I just mentioned, the concept of it in Christianity, John the Baptist, when we look at the scholars and when we look at historians and who they give a credit to baptism to, it originates with him. And when it comes to Anubis and what she did, according to the picture, now I've seen a lot of people just point at this picture and call it a baptism when really what we see is water being poured on a person. But in Christianity, a person is immersed inside the water. We're not pouring water on somebody's head. We're not trying to wet their hair or blow dry their hair or something like that. And I mean no disrespect in saying that. But Christianity, like you said, we don't baptize people to save them, or we don't baptize them because they're, or things like that. You get baptized to show a It is an outwardly showing of your conversion. You know, so it's not a concept as in like, oh, I'm a Christian, so now I got to go get baptized because I didn't just made this my thing, and if I don't, I'm a somehow not be a Christian no more. So whatever purpose they try to say that it's a copy of in Egypt, in which we see that they don't even know the original meaning of what it was, but when they try to tie it into what the biblical meaning was, they will not find no historian, no literature or anything to back that up. It's all he say, she say, and that's what we get pseudo-ness from, you know? So like I said, I'm not the smartest person on earth, but we can do timelines and we can trace stuff back. And a lot of stuff that have been said that have been that have been said to be copies of Kemet that are in the Bible. When we trace the timeline back, we honestly just see that that isn't true. And we don't have to lie on the Bible just because we don't believe in it. We can be honest, we can be stand-up people and just have a different belief, but we don't have to bash a belief or try to discredit a belief, and especially lie on a belief just because we're not a part of that belief. That's all I want to say, bro. That's all I want to say,
right,
bro.
Right. You right, man. You right. You know what I'm saying? And just the thing about this, and the reason why I felt like it needed to be addressed is because, of course, because it's false. And I mean, you know, because everything that he said that I addressed is things I used to believe. You know, and a lot of it came from Ashra Kwesi, like, you know what I'm saying? And I think it's just either he's regurgitating what people like Gerald Massey, as a matter of fact, I think it's both. I think he's regurgitating what people like Gerald Massey and Kersey Graves have put out as quote unquote truth when they were alive, and they were, I guess looking into Egypt or whatever. Because as a matter of fact, I actually saw Ashra Kwesi video while I was in the conscious community, and he had a book by John G. Jackson called Christianity Before Christ. And what he was doing in his presentation is he was comparing Jesus and Horus, saying that they had the same birthday, that they, their stories were similar, that, they both performed miracles and, all this and that. But what he didn't either know or he didn't acknowledge is that John G. Jackson's book is if it's not a direct derivative, it's pretty close to what Kersey Graves had written in his book, World 16 Crucified Saviors. And we know that in the world of academia, World 16 Crucified Saviors holds absolutely no weight whatsoever. So, when you see things like that, when you see videos by Ashra Kwesi and he's making these comparisons between Jesus and Horus, and you also see it in documentaries like Zeitgeist and things like that, the best thing for you to do is to fact check it. Don't just take it as truth because Ashra Kwesi makes it sound good, or he makes it sound like what he's saying is true, or he knows what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? So, that's important, bro. Like, and just like in our last discussion, when Metuhotep made the comment, and I agree with him, be careful who you get your knowledge from. You have to be careful who you get your knowledge from. You have to fact check.
I agree with that. And like you said, you got to fact check things, because that's the only way that you're going to get real information. It's not about your truth or my truth or anything like that, because 2 + 2 = 4 no matter who disagree with it. There's a quote that somebody had where it's like, if you go to a bank and tell the bank that you want $100,000, but that bank teller tell you that you only got $47 in your account. You can't tell that bank teller, well, that's your truth, not my truth. See if they're gonna give you the money or not. You know, so when it comes to information, man, we gotta fact check stuff. We gotta look stuff up because I've been in Christian apologetics for a minute. You know, double digits of years, and a lot of the stuff that's being said, especially when it comes to like being copies and things like that, or a lot of these pseudo books and these pseudo Hollywood movies and videos. A lot of people not fact checking that stuff. They just taking what's said and they running with it. And when we look up the majority of those things, we can't find any ancient documents, any ancient literature, nothing suggesting or referring or alluding to any of those things. And even when we check, when we interview some of the people who live in those lands, they disagree with the theology that the people over here in the West are teaching about those lands. So for people to say they have respect for people in Africa and their ancestors and all that, then why would they want to not have the true teachings or believe in the true things that they actually believe, rather than making up things that people over in the West who are not from there, don't live there. I don't care how many trips you take there. You can get a better story from the locals than you can from anywhere else. It's just like coming to America and you come to a museum and it tells you that Christopher Columbus created America, but we all know that that's not true. So you can go to places over there and you can see stuff, and it could not be true. You know what I'm saying? We all know that you have to fact check things, and that's what I'm trying to say, long story short. And Brother Jerome, I think you did a real good job tonight, man, and I think you pointed out a lot of good stuff, man, and I really want to hear a rebuttal or some kind of rebuke, because I really want to see the documents or the evidence that these people have for these claims, more than just regurgitating something that they heard from somebody on a video, because the documents are what's going to prove what's true and what's not. And for them to be presenting a positive claim on something, then it's up for them to provide the evidence. And I'm just waiting to see if there's going to be something, not just something said back, but I can't wait to see if there's going to be evidence presented to prove the claim, in which I already know there is, but I can't wait to see it try. You know? Brother Jerome. Brother Pianki.
Peace, brothers. Peace.
Yeah, I don't know if Jerome got disconnected somehow.
I see him now.
No, yeah, I'm here. I just had my mic muted.
Oh, okay, there you go. Okay, my bad. But yeah, that's all I want to say, man. Big job, bro.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, man. But yeah, Brother Pianki, you know, you can go ahead if you have a few questions you want to ask.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not even gonna ask no questions this time around. I'm gonna let the presentation speak for itself, and I'm gonna let Metuhotep Jallow, the Warrior-Scholar, see it, and you know, whatever issues he take with it, he'll bring it to the forefront and do his rebuttal, and then we'll see what manifests out of that. That's why I was kind of keen on you sort of getting out your objections to his positions and assertions, and then him kind of doing the same thing with no interruptions, kind of uninhibited, so to speak, unfiltered. And then, you know, if a debate or a discussion surface out of that, then all the better for Paradigm Shift TV and its audience. So yeah, I don't have any questions. I think it speaks for itself, and we're gonna see where the chips fall and see what the Warrior-Scholar have to say about the assertions you made, and see what objections he has. So I think it's gonna be it's gonna lead to a nice little series. So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, yeah, you know, that's definitely plausible. You know what I'm saying? I know he gonna he gonna try to come back with something. You know what I'm saying? I'm expecting that. So.
And I was just speaking in general. You know, he's not the only one that have made some claims. So I wasn't speaking to specifically him, but I was speaking to the subject that my brother had brought up, because those claims have been made for years, and a lot of those claims have been dead for years. So I'm really kind of surprised to even hear that they have reemerged, especially from a person who I've only talked to one time, but I give the brother respect, and I think that he, you know, have some intelligence to himself too. But I am kind of surprised to not know that he didn't know that those things were already considered fiction, pretty much.
Yeah, I think one thing I will say about the Warrior Scholar, he is very knowledgeable. So I'm not gonna say that he didn't know certain things. If it's an explanation for it, I'm sure he aware of it, and he gonna put that forth. So I think it's definitely gonna be interesting to see how he respond, and what information he end up putting forth with regards to that response. So I'm not gonna count him out. I think you definitely threw a tremendous first punch, so to speak, but I'm not gonna say he knocked out just yet. So let's see what he got to respond with, and then we'll kind of go from there. But you definitely came out swinging. So let's see what the Warrior Scholar come and respond with.
Oh yeah, it's all respect, man. It's all love, man. It's just for the information.
You know? No doubt. I love one thing about starting this channel and just being a fan of channels like Modern Day Debate, Sonetta channel, and other channels like that, Scholar Fiction and others. I love intellectual warfare, so to speak. And so I'm hyped for this kind of stuff. And I feel like with y'all brothers and the other brothers that contribute to the channel, I got a nice little well-rounded roster of individuals who bring the heat when it comes to scholarship and knowledge. So this get me hyped whenever y'all come on and do y'all thing. So
it's gonna be wonderful. my bad.
No doubt. So yeah, man. If I'm gonna let y'all close out, and whatever closing remarks y'all have, man, we can jump on off of here, man. Y'all kept it under an hour. I think we right at about 45 minutes. So whatever y'all closing remarks is, and then we can jump off, and we'll get this to the people tomorrow. So I have like a little double header. I got a solo conversation with Trust that I'll be doing tomorrow, and then I had this up, so I'll probably just do them back to back.
Right.
Okay.
Brother Jerome, I'm gonna let you close out. Like I said, I was just here for more support, man, and just to add lip on what my brother was saying, man. That he was telling the truth and he was telling them facts, man. So I just want to say shout out to the Paradigm Shift audience, man. Y'all know y'all can reach me at Trust and Believe the Gospel. You can inbox me at Coach for No Wire, man, and my brother Jerome. Gonna close it out for us, bro.
All right. Once again, it's always a pleasure to be a part of the Paradigm Shift TV platform. I appreciate Brother Pianki for having me on once again, and I appreciate Trust for kind of tag teaming with me, you know what I'm saying, during this presentation. You know, I really appreciated his input on the points that I made, and that's pretty much it, bro. Until next time.
All All right. And as always, this has been another episode of Paradigm Shift TV 314. Misinformation is the enemy of knowledge. And so we're going to keep bringing that knowledge to you, whether you like it or not. And it's all about knowledge, wisdom, and truth on Paradigm Shift TV 314. So we're going to bring it to you. We're going to bring it to you live and in effect. So stick with us. My brothers, I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
We'll see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Yes, sir. We'll see you next time. So I had this up for y'all tomorrow. Until then, hotel.
Right. Man of that.
Peace, my brothers.
All right, peace.